Okay, ni'n fyw. We're live, everybody. Croeso nôl bawb. I don't know where this last hour's gone. Mae wedi hedfan. Ond beth sy'n bwysig, mae'r bobl bwysig yn fy stafell i. I've got the really important people in the room. We've talked over the last hour about making real life experiences for young people. And we've got 4 of our 5 panelists in the room with us. So without further ado, I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. You've seen their biogs, chi wedi gweld yr biwgraffiadau yna ar Event Box, ond dwi'n mynd i ddechrau gyda pennaeth San Siôr Conwy. Cyflwyna dy hunan i ni, tell us who you are.
Mae'n siŵr bod y bio fi yn un llia yn y byd, ond dwi'n bod bennaeth yn Ysgol San Siôr 27 mlynedd, ac yn y cyfnod yna, da ni wedi cychwyn sawl menter. So I've been head of San Siôr for the last 27 years, and in that time we've set up several enterprises. Some of them have been really successful and have continued, others have just fallen by the wayside, but in all of them the children have had a great experience and it's contributed significant afield to their education.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Ian, and your reflection on the comments and questions when they come in would be really valuable. And I know some of you had difficulty watching the San Siôr film earlier today, but I tell you, be persistent and resilient, because when you do see it, you'll know exactly what it's all about. Felly, diolch yn fawr a croeso, Ian. I'm going to go to Caroline. She's on my top right-hand corner. Croeso, Caroline, tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Caroline, the head teacher of Oystermouth Primary School in Mumbles. I've been involved in enterprise activities with my Year 2 children for many years when I was a class teacher, and I found it was the most exciting time in the children's year in my class. The enthusiasm and motivation was brilliant when we did the enterprise, so maybe it's thoroughly embedded now in the curriculum at Oystermouth.
Diolch yn fawr, and they've had difficulty in getting you away from that school, according to Biog, which is fantastic. You're here to stay, Caroline.
Yes, part of the furniture.
Yay. Cyn bod ni'n mynd at gweddill y panel, before we go on to the other members of the panel, remember, it's your opportunity to ask a question. We're having a look at them as we speak. Your responses were great at the top. Felly, dewch ar cwestiynau yna. Draw nesaf at Gaynor Roberts. Gaynor, beth o'n i, pwy wyt ti? Who are you, Gaynor?
Wel, pnawn da pawb. Gaynor Roberts dyn enw fi, a dwi yn fodel rôl i Syniadau Mawr Cymru, wedi bod efo'r rhaglen dros 10 mlynedd erbyn hyn. So I'm a role model with the Big Ideas Wales project and have been for about 10 years. And been lucky enough to be a judge, have been a judge in the North Wales rounds and in the national rounds over the years. Felly, falch iawn o fod yma pnawn 'ma.
Good to see you, my fellow role model. And for now, last but not least, Jodie, tell us about who you are and the work that you do.
Hi everyone, I'm Jodie Martin from Ysgol Esgob Morgan in St Asaph, and my role is a HLTA, so I'm a higher level teaching assistant, but generally do a bit of everything, and have started many businesses within the school and supported different members of staff starting businesses within the school, and in particular the F1 in Schools project, which has had a lot of money managing skills involved in that. And that was something that I led on. So yeah, excited to share different businesses that we do in our school.
And I think that what I want to say to you is honesty. Just be honest with these. You've got fellow colleagues listening in this afternoon. Byddwch mor honest. Mae angen y cymorth a'r cyngor ymarferol. They need your practical support and help. Felly, please be honest. And then we'll take the questions as they come. But then we've got one question here. And I think I'll start with you, Jodie. You talked about so many things happening in school. From your perspective, and I'll ask this to the 3 teaching professionals here, how do you fit enterprise activities in with everything else the school has to deliver? Are there enough hours in the day?
It's always a tough one, isn't it? That it's so busy. School is such a busy place, but I think especially with the new curriculum for Wales coming in, and the 4 purposes of the children being ambitious, capable learners and enterprising creative contributors, I think this fits in really well, and it's a perfect opportunity to let schools go with it and let schools roll with it. It gives schools that free rein to go and do that, and I think it's what we've been crying out for, that time to do it, and now we've been given it. I think it's just grab it and take it. I can't encourage you enough to take the opportunities to bring businesses into the school, and yeah, especially with these 4 purposes, and to make these young learners passionate and resilient and capable learners to go on in future, I think is really important.
these activities, they really are so aligned to what that curriculum is offering, isn't it? Thank you for that, Jodie. And then, Ian, you've done so many different activities. How have you managed to fit it in the day whilst doing other things, or is it other things?
Well, yeah, I think the important thing is to remember it's not an add-on. It's because it's very easy to think, oh, we've got to do this as well as everything else we're doing, but it's partly part and parcel of the curriculum. So the skills, the literacy skills, the numeracy skills are all part of the project, really. I remember one of the neighbours complained because one of the cockerels was too loud, so we took advantage of that, in that the children measured the loudness of the cockerel using decibel meter. They wrote reports. They actually were able to tell the neighbour that, you know, the cockerel was only crowing at certain times of the day, as opposed to when he was saying that they were. And in the end, the science was part of the project. At the end, we got rid of the cockerel because we live in a community, but they were able to use that. But sometimes there's failings as well. The children in year 1 are currently doing mini meadows, so they're making their own recycled paper and impregnating the paper with wildflower seed. And of course, because the paper's damp and the seeds are starting to germinate, so the mistakes and the failures are part of the learning process. So it's not a failure, because the children are learning to become more resilient learners by the mistakes.
Brilliant. Some of the teachers talked about the importance of taking risks earlier on this afternoon. I think exactly what you're doing. They're learning from that questioning and the risk taking, and when things aren't working right. Sorry,
the successes, you know, I mean, we produced 100,000th egg last year, and that was such a milestone for the children. So, you know, there are successes as well as failures. Sorry.
No, diolch yn fawr, hwnna'n werthfawr iawn I ti. Caroline, from your perspective, what would you have to say to that question?
Well, we always do our enterprise in the summer term, and as Ian said, it's not an add-on at all. The last enterprise that I did, the topic was the seaside. So the children generated all the ideas and thought of the products they wanted to make, and we actually have an enterprise week leading up to the PTA summer fair. So it's not an add-on, it's all part of what's going on throughout the whole term. And really, when you look at the literacy and numeracy framework, the amount of skills that you can cover is absolutely amazing. With I mean, the counting of money, and change, it's definitely not an add-on. I think if you actually reflect, once you've done your enterprise topic, you've ticked so many boxes off the L&F. It's an absolutely essential thing to do in schools these days, especially with the 4 purposes.
Excellent. Diolch yn fawr I ti, Ian. Gaynor, you've seen this happening from a role model point of view. You've been one of the judges of the competition in the past. What are you, from listening to what Ian, Caroline and Jodie have said, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I think, amazing answers, because it is very much an integral part of what needs to go on, really. And I think for us as judges, what we've looked for as well, really, is that the children are really involved in it, and sort of that they're passionate about it, and that really comes across in the schools that do well. They know every little detail themselves. It's not an adult sort of deciding for them, but that they're really sort of passionate themselves, and have obviously done all the work and have considered all aspects. So that really has come through really strongly in a lot of the schools.
So it didn't feel like an add-on to you from the judges' perspective either?
No, absolutely. I think they were sort of living the whole enterprise experience for the time that they were doing it, you know, and and it's really important from, I'm also a qualified teacher, and, you know, knowing, you know, sort of how much you can get out of running a business and the skills that you get out of it, you know, it's sort of germinating that little seed when they're young to grow that passion in the future.
Now, there's a really interesting comment here, and a concern by one of it's anonymous, but it doesn't matter about that at all. Worried that because of the effect of COVID, that the school won't allow anything like this to happen. Valid response and concern, but what would you say to that? Caroline, start with you.
Yeah, well, we're still going to go ahead with our enterprise project in the summer term. Even though we might not be able to hold a summer fair, the parents are so on board, the PTA, they're going to, whatever the products the children make, they're going to help distribute it. We're still going to sell things like we would do normally, even if we have to do it socially distanced at the school gate. So Colby's not going to stop enterprise at Oystermouth, definitely.
Great. Ian?
Yeah,
nothing's going to stop Llanllwr.
No, the honey will produce, the bees, I mean, will produce honey, whatever the situation, you know, with the pandemics. And, you know, the honey, of course, will last hundreds of years. But we managed to sell the honey harvest in 2 days, making £1,000 for the school. It's just, we advertised it on Twitter, and then people would come after school and just buy it. So we weren't able to take part in the annual Conwy Honey Fair, which is 100 years old, but we were able to sell and market using the internet instead.
Gwych. Jodie, COVID obstacle?
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's an obstacle, it's a challenge. It's definitely something that we're looking at with doing it in bubbles. Obviously, it's going to be in the classes now rather than, we've mixed it over the school before, and year 3s have worked with year 6s, and we find that really beneficial. But again, bubbles thing, that's a problem. So at the moment, we're looking at they're setting up a business page on this on our school website, and there's going to be a little order form, and it's going to be done that way. And I think, again, that's another ICT skill that all our children will benefit from, ordering online. I mean, what child can't do it nowadays? But creating their own form and be able to put in what's available and what's not, and creating that database is another really good skill. So yeah, that's something that we're doing. So maybe for that person, it's something to go back to school and maybe come up with a solution as to how you can still run it, because I think it's not, COVID isn't going to go away tomorrow, is it? It's going to be something that we need to come over, and we need to keep making these resilient, really.
Yeah.
And social media is incredible. I mean, we just sent 250 Be Mindful bracelets to New York last week because they'd heard about the project, and some more have gone to a hospital, I think, in Connecticut. So the social media, take advantage of social media. I mean, I'm dead against Facebook in schools, but we have used that platform to advertise some of the products that we've been selling.
Great, diolch yn fawr. And obviously, we've got a comment here from a colleague of yours. There are ways around COVID. We had a catalogue in Christmas for our Christmas fete, so that was great. And again, people are saying it's not an add-on, agreeing with exactly what you've said. They've got setting up enterprises, Dragon's Den project, inviting local business in to invest. Now, Gaynor, have you been in schools in Dragon's Den initiatives, or have you found yourself as a business person in that context?
Yes, I have. Not in primary, actually, but in secondary school, certainly. And yeah, fantastic experience for all involved. I think we can all learn from each other in these kind of circumstances. But I think as well that what's been said already, that you know, you find ways and means of doing things sort of to suit the circumstances, and I think that's part of sort of what businesses themselves have had to do now as well, and it kind of learns it's an additional skill that the children are getting to think about, well, we can't sell face to face, how can we sell, and to think of other ways of doing, and they're so creative, aren't they? So you know, I'm sure there's no shortage of ideas.
No, and it's useful for primary schools to know as well. Role models, we as role models do go in to the primaries to support. We do that voluntarily. With secondary schools, it's a different kind of scheme. But with primary schools, we are there to support and encourage you to develop those business ideas. I mean, listening to our teachers here today, you don't need that support, but we're always there. The resources that are being launched today and the role models that you've seen on video are all there to support you to do what you do. So you're not on your own, and Big Ideas Wales can be there. I'm scanning the questions now. They're coming in together, just like buses, all coming together. As a school leader, how do you maintain that interest across the whole school? I'm going to start with Ian.
Well, initially our businesses were set up as school businesses, so we had the chickens and the bees, and the chutney making, and the composting, and then it's only quite a recent initiative where we've actually not imposed but asked every single year group to have an enterprise as part of their curriculum, and it's free rein really for the teachers to decide and choose whichever subject they wanted. So it's from wide ranging from wax wraps in year 6 to the ready-made cake mixture in year 3 to the Be Mindful business in year 2. So the teachers have just used their own. You've got to trust the staff within your school, and they've just gone with it. And it's there's no lack of motivation amongst the children because they've used the children's passion and enthusiasm to get these products off the ground.
Diolch, Ian. So Jodie, is it just you in that school, or is it across school?
Oh no, it's across school. It's definitely a whole school approach. We are a small school. We're only 120 of juniors, so we are a small school and a small cohort of staff. But small as mighty, and we are very, everybody's very passionate about the businesses across the school. It did start off as a Year 5 project with the chickens, again selling the eggs locally to the local residents that we find ourselves in an area of residential, so a lot of elderly people around. And it did start off as a Year 5 project, and then we got the Year 3s involved, who pre-COVID were going to nursing homes and spending time there, and they started off a card business with the Year 6s, making cards to send to relatives of the people in the homes and things like that. So this year it's going to be a whole school approach. It really is. It's going to be everybody doing a business that they're planning at the minute, looking at sustainability and plastics and things like that. So it all ties in, and like we said before, it's definitely not an add-on. And making promotional videos, and I've seen some of the videos that they make on Adobe Spark and Flipgrid, and using all these apps that they've used in lockdown, bringing it back to school and promoting it and advertising these products that they're making is amazing.
I need to check out what some of those apps are, Jodie. I'm in the dark here. I'm showing my age. But a lovely comment from the person who sent it in the COVID question. They were worried about sending things home, but likes the idea of going digital and ordering online, and says thank you for that. Now, Caroline, you've done every single role in school. You've been at the school for so long. It must be just you in Oystermouth, eh?
Definitely not. No, definitely not. I think I started the enterprise in school, but it's actually just cascaded across the whole school now. And what actually happens in the summer term, the PTA very kindly give each class £20, and then that's the starting point for them to do the enterprise. But the main thing is the class gets to keep the money, so that really motivates the children, because they know that they have the money in return, the profit, and they get to buy things, their own resources for school. So they've got the ownership, they've got the money at the beginning, and then they get the profit at the end. So there's no stopping the children. I think the teachers want the profit as well. So no, definitely whole school at Oystermouth.
Oh, thank you. Well, the next question, there's a question here. Do some of the enterprise activities fail due to lack of motivation, interest of some staff? Gaynor, you've seen schools working. How pivotal is the motivation of staff? And have you seen any examples on when it has failed?
No, because I think by the time they get to the competition level, when we see them, obviously they're sort of thriving by that point. And I've seen some really good examples of really tiny schools working together and sort of doing amazing things. And I think sometimes, to be honest, you do need a driving force at the school. It's not going to sort of, there's so many things that schools have to do these days that it is difficult to sort of, do everything and do everything really, really well. But, the examples, there are plenty of examples of the schools that have taken part in the competition that keep on coming back year on year. And obviously there are key people in those schools, as the 3 that we've got here now. But I think the message is really that anybody can give it a go. And even if you start with something really, really small, then it's still a start and a stepping stone, and you can build on that, really. I think some of the ideas that have been thrown about today have been really useful as well, sort of starting with some money and giving an incentive that way as well.
Gwych, ymateb wirioneddol dda. I won't ask that question to the rest, achos chi wedi dangos bod chi'n arwen. You've showed us how you've led those initiatives in school, and from what we're hearing this afternoon, it isn't a surprise that everybody else is catching on. Dare they not to, I say. But a really interesting question here from Jack. Do you ever look to work with other schools, either locally or nationally? Who wants to put their hand up? Because I can see the 4 of you. Locally or nationally? Ian, I think you want to answer that one.
We had a project looking at palm oil, and we linked with a school in Borneo. And they were able to give us information about the palm oil, and then we introduced the Be Mindful project, the bracelet with a positive, resilient message. And now they've started exactly the same business in Brunei, where the school is, where they're making their own Be Mindful bracelets, but they're not using a bee. I think they're using a little monkey or something. So they've actually copied. Well, I suppose we must have copied it somewhere, but they've actually replicated our business, but in Borneo, which is lovely. So that's a great connection to have. But we haven't linked with local schools, which is what the question was in the first place.
What about you, Jodie? Have you?
No, we've not linked with local schools either. It's maybe an opportunity to look at. But yeah, definitely, it's something that we'd be interested in. We love sharing practice. I mean, everyone, like you say, it's someone's idea in the first place, isn't it? And not everyone's now got chickens and things like that. And it's so it's not a case of it's our idea, not yours. It's a great idea to share practice and get the businesses into the school. But it's not something that we've worked with locally. No. So yeah, it's definitely an opportunity.
And before going to Caroline, I've got to ask this question. What happens with the holidays with regards to the animals? Let's talk about the chickens.
Or two towards the short straw.
Do you want to answer that, Ms. Martin?
Yeah, we live locally, so we have a holiday club. We run Food and Fun Club, which is Welsh Government initiative also. So they carry it on for the first 12 days, and then holiday clubs sometimes take it over. But again, it's a staff thing. So you've got to have a really good driving force behind you, because the staff do really look after the animals.
Oh, thank you. Is that similar with you, Ian?
Yeah, we've got a holiday club. I have to come in because we're registered as a packing station as well, so we sell their eggs locally. So we have to kind of oversee that to make sure that we conform to the correct guidelines. And with the zoo, with the monitor lizards and the chameleons, it's basically holiday club, and we've got a really passionate teaching assistant who, well, I expect the zoo and the farm would have closed if it wasn't for her.
Oh, diolch I ti. Karen, I've got to come back to you because there's so much activity going on locally in Swansea. So are you working with other schools?
Yeah, well, every year they do the Swansea Enterprise Challenge. So all local primary schools want to take part. They develop their own product. And then recently it's been sold in Castle Gardens in Swansea. So every primary school has their own little stall. And then it's a really, really good sharing opportunity. So all the children, you can take your class children there as well. They visit all the other stalls. And then what they have is a certificate or a prize for each school. So it might be the best communicator or the best person dealing with money. So it's in Swansea, it's really taken off big time. And it's a really good sharing of good practice across the county.
Excellent, really good to hear of that. And we'll hear from Sue Poole later on that work as well. I know you work very, very closely with Sue. Brilliant. There's a question here. What online platforms have you used? I won't start with you again, or I'll go to the teachers, but you can tell us what you use in work. Jodie, start with you.
So we use our school website, but Google Sites is amazing, and it's a free resource, and it's so child friendly. The children can set up a website within an hour and put their own information on it, and it's brilliant. So yeah, Google is definitely something that we use. Flipgrid is sort of like a little bit like Snapchat, but educational and friendly like that. So you can they can record short clips and short videos, short adverts, and then they can save them like that. So yeah, Flipgrid and Google are two really good sites that we've definitely used a lot of.
Caroline?
We use our school website as well, and then we've got a teachers to parents email and text service as well. So the children are, with teachers' help, are allowed to text parents and email parents with the price list, order forms, things like that, just as a way of communicating with the parents.
Diolch. Ian?
Mainly, we've got our own website, but mainly Twitter, and then the Be Mindful Business has set up their own special Facebook page.
Brilliant. As a businesswoman, Gaynor, what do you use to actually sell your own stuff, and could they use that?
Yeah, well, it's own website obviously, and social media is huge these days, and you know, it doesn't cost anything, it doesn't take much time to set up. Obviously with adult intervention to sort of help with that. But yeah, I mean, you know, and some of the tools that I've never heard of being mentioned today, like what Jodie was mentioning, but yeah, some fantastic tools, obviously, and it's so instant, and you know, it could reach so many people. That a fantastic opportunity to use some social media, really.
Now's the time to end this Q&A. I don't want this to finish. I could talk to you for another half an hour, but we are coming to the end of the Q&A session. So before we go to the end, diolch o galon, Ian, Caroline, Jodie and Gaynor. It's been wonderful spending time with you. We will bring this to an end, and those of you who can stay with us for the networking session, please do. But we will take a break now. The networking session starts, I'm checking my timetable, otherwise the school bell will ring. At 5:10, we'll be we'll be leaving Microsoft Teams and going on to another platform. We'll be zooming our way into the networking sphere. Felly, am nawr, we'll be closing the Teams, have a break until 5:10, and those of you who can, stay with us. If you can't, diolch o galon am ymuno yn heddi. Mae 'di bod yn wych bod yn eich cwmni chi. And on to the next enterprising idea. Diolch yn fawr bawb. 5:10, networking on Zoom. Diolch yn fawr. Hwyl.